And that's gotta be up days in advance.
Yeah, that's it. It has to. We need to probably talk about that a little bit.
Nobody does. No, I just, I hate to keep saying what we used to do at school district, but we got it back up to on Monday for a Thursday week. It's just too much to imagine. So I'll make it.
Don't mind if I just pick two workers twice?
Whichever one.
Okay, next trick point 3. And I was up front, I need to go get my alcohol and then I'll be right back.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hey, Jerry.
The Corona thing, right?
I'm doing you.
Hey, Jack.
Hey, Jerry, how are you?
How you doing?
Yeah.
I have a request for future meetings.
Yes.
Can we not do it before 2:00?
Sure.
This is right in the middle of our split lunch hour.
I guess make
It's very hard.
Oh, okay.
2:30?
Even 2, I managed to make it, you know.
But, yeah, okay, no, see no reason not to
We got you over here,
accommodate.
What?
It's me.
Larry, or over here, you pick wherever which one you
Oh, I
want.
already
Did I send it
out.
wrong?
No, you're good. You're good.
Hey,
We're
hey,
just-
you doing good. Did you enjoy that?
We're trying to do the,
So you came first, so you get to sit at the table.
Where'd you say I was assigned, so?
either one of those right there.
You want a big table or a little table?
I want this nonsense to stop, but I want.
Yeah, no, I am really getting tired of this.
Well, again, we're not live, but we're always.
Yeah, we are. We are.
Already?
We're rocking.
Like I say, don't say anything about anybody unless you really mean it.
Well, actually, this might be a good time to let slip what I think about some of what's going on. I just remember that 8 weeks ago, the only reason to wear a mask, the only reason, according to the good Dr. Kildare, was to keep you from touching your face. Amazing how we've gone.
But, yeah. Well, you know, it's kind of like the old deal, fish on Friday. Well, no, not so much anymore. St. Christopher's when you travel. You know, no, that's what. Same old. Yeah, my wife and I go round and round about the mask thing. I'm not big on masks.
I have chosen to wear one when I go in a
Alrighty.
Lowe's, Walmart, something.
Or the tax office?
Well, if the door says wear one, I do it.
Yeah.
I oblige.
There you go.
But the only other reason is to keep some maniac from screaming at me because I'm not wearing one.
Yep, it's right there. See,
I'm already in that special group. I'm over 65.
We have a
I'm
lot of
diabetic.
data.
I know
Here to the side, and definitely the agenda is always.
Like I just told him, I have no idea what it is. She wanted to take my temperature.
Oh, wow.
These
If
are a
she
lot
takes
of
my temperature, I got a
documents that
fever,
reference.
start digging a hole. I don't want a fever.
Well, when they finally opened up so I could get a haircut after 2.5 months, which is unprecedented. length of time,
Yes.
I might add. And I was beginning to get a little.
Whoever got these,
And she said, you gotta wear a mask. I said, I'll crawl
Good
over hot coals.
Yeah.
Come on.
I think, but turn it just a little bit this way. Maybe we can get, yeah, we got Larry.
I don't really need to be in the picture, so.
You know, Donna, do you mind sitting on the other side?
No, I'm
That way we could see Jerry.
I didn't know where you were gonna be, so,
I'm gonna be back here.
okay. Well, that's
I'm gonna be
awesome.
going in and
That
out of
way
the
I can see
picture.
everybody better.
Let's see, Frank is joining us remotely. And Travis will join us at the last minute.
Yeah, Yeah, I believe he's coming as well.
Yeah, he indicated he could, I wasn't sure whether he was gonna go remote or,
Yeah, he wasn't sure, but then, and I think he's on his way, so it is after the time, but I mean, if you wanna wait for,
yeah, let's wait just a little bit. This is an unusual emergency.
When I didn't see any cars here, I thought maybe the meeting day.
Well, let me tell you, Val, I parked out front, in violation of all rules and regulations. Val met me at the door, very politely, very politely, said,
Would you mind parking in the back?
would you get your fanny around?
Had I known that, when I emailed you guys, I would have said please park back, but I.
Well, I didn't see cars out front then.
Here he is.
I thought we were all Zoom illumined.
Well, there he is.
I think
Yeah.
Rick's the only one that's gonna Zoom.
Yeah.
So I called Mike right before, and I was like, he said, are you outside the building? I said, no, I thought we're Zooming. He goes, only bring, I'll be here in a minute, hold on.
I'm hopelessly old school.
Oh,
Yeah.
luckily, I'm 3 blocks away, so it wasn't like I had to make a major adjustment in my lifestyle to get down there.
Okay, what's different about your hair? The length or the color or
Probably the length,
something's different?
the length.
yeah, he's let it grow. He's normally pretty tight.
Or you could like me, or like he was saying, I finally got a hair appointment like last week for 10 days or something. That's how you do.
Really?
Yeah. In 2 months, June said.
Oh, yeah, no, it's been 2.5 months of this
We got Brink.
unprecedented.
Awesome.
But I had a hat on, so.
And we
I didn't
have
even
no
press it.
camera, but Anna Marshall is attending my Zoom on.
I don't know if
Okay.
it does any better when it's.
Hello, y'all.
Hey, Brink.
Hi, Frank.
Hey, Brent.
We're gonna put him up here so y'all can see him.
Anna Marshall, my chief deputy, but we don't have a camera, so she's just listening in.
And it's also being broadcast on YouTube live right now, so.
Thank you.
Interesting.
Knows my hair situation, that's good.
We started. You realize that there are, you have to call the people. Okay.
At what time?
Yeah, that's a good.
Got it.
Good
Okay,
idea.
we should be done by then. All right, so go ahead, Amy. Yeah, I turned it on. Okay, so
You tell me we have Frank on the link?
and we are recording right now, so we should be good to go. Right, Amy?
Okay, well, let's call it to order then. 6 minutes late? Yeah, 6 minutes late. So, okay, and I note the presence of the quorum.
Is there anybody else that wants to get in, Amy?
Let's move on to item 2, consideration and actions on the minutes of the March 16th, 2020 meeting.
Where are all those people?
Copy
Can't
here.
actually put them up on the wall. If I put them up on the
Anybody have any
wall,
comments on the minutes?
the video will
I
stop
make a
recording
motion to
anyone,
approve
but
them.
Okay,
which will.
Yeah, I have a question on the minutes.
motion to approve.
Frank's got a question.
Yes, sir.
Frank?
So I'm not doubting that what was presented here is the minutes, but I sure don't remember making a motion not to approve a resolution. I mean, the action would have been to do nothing. Help me remember what happened.
Where are
The
you, Frank?
next to the last
Next to the last
paragraph
paragraph
on
on
the
the
first
first
page.
page.
Okay.
I think what happened, Frank, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, is that you generally pointed out that we had already approved that motion. Therefore, we did not need to take action.
And that's what would be logical to happen. So nobody would make a motion not to approve a resolution. And that's what my confusion is.
I agree. It's a bit confusing that
Yeah.
we did make a motion not to approve the resolution. We simply,
No,
I don't know that there was a
previously
motion.
approved.
Okay.
Yeah, we just made the statement was made that the motion had already been approved, therefore there was no action that needed to be taken. Is that correct?
That's the way I remember it, yeah.
If that's the case, all we need to do is amend the minutes accordingly.
Mr. Brinkoff noted that the motion had already been approved and no action was required.
Do you have that okay, Donna?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'll amend my motion to approve the minutes as corrected.
Okay. Second. Okay.
All in favor?
Further discussion of the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
I have a request. This is our first meeting by Zoom or me being where somebody is on Zoom. I didn't print anything for thinking that we would have it in front of us. And as I'm learning now, I don't have it in front of me. So we need to plan accordingly for the next meeting that either we get copies in advance. And by the way, I guess I'll go and step in now. Michael, we got to have this kind of information days in advance of the meeting.
It would help.
It would help.
But also, if we can't look at it, then I need to either print it or have copies here when we get here, because that's where the questions come from.
Do you not have it in front of you right there?
This I brought, so I don't know what we have.
Oh, you have physical
And I did
copies?
send them yesterday.
I just got my email at 1:06
Yeah, yeah.
this afternoon.
Yeah, I got it today.
Yeah.
Right before I came.
No, but you have it, you should have it in your,
The agenda
Like,
and the minutes I sent.
you should have every document that we're gonna talk
Agenda.
about
Yeah,
right
yeah,
here.
no, the
It's
the
just
actual,
I think
this.
Okay,
yes,
then the only
yes.
thing I have to fuss about is, let's get them out before. the
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
This, yeah.
Okay, I got
Can
it.
I touch this? Social distancing and all that? Yeah, every single document.
Ah,
Right
okay.
there. Yeah, it's right there. Every single
Bingo.
one.
Well, I didn't know.
And yes, you are correct. I should have it in advance.
Okay.
I will try to endeavor to do that in the future.
I wasn't.
That would be
Jerry
helpful.
made
I
the
know.
motion to.
You got about 10 minutes.
Well, I have it in my paper stack here that was here when I sat down.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have time to print either.
Okay, moving on to item 3, citizens to be heard. I see no citizens to be heard in the room. Is there?
Eamon, can you go do a check real quick? Yeah, we're gonna have him check there's an administrative control for the Zoom meeting, and we can see who's dialed in.
That's what I thought.
And we know that Brink is dialed in, and Anna Marshall, we can see, is listening in. And we'll just see if any of the rest actually say Aransas CAD. So unless it's somebody that's a citizen that wants to be heard, they will make it known to us, and then we can actually hear it. So I'm going to have him check one more time. He checked just a few minutes ago, but I'm going to have him check one more
So that
time.
was a question. Public comment are not coming in physically, but you have a way for them
That's
to make
correct.
public comment via, very good.
That's correct.
There are no citizens waiting to be heard.
Okay, identifying no citizens to be heard, let's move on to item 4. Item 4, consideration of and possible action on resolution adopting amendment to 2020 budget to transfer funds from sale of former headquarters lot to funds for renovation of current headquarters and for subscriptions to commercial property transaction databases.
Right.
Everybody get all that?
Right. And just to refresh your memory, there's a 2-step process to resolutions. There's proposing the resolution, which y'all did at the last meeting. You wait 30 days in case any entity has a question about that adopting the proposal. And then there's the actual adoption of the amendment after 30 days. And that's what we're doing today.
And during that 30-day period, the entities have the opportunity to review the resolution and raise any questions or concerns. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
And we have done that 30-day posting process, and it's
Right.
been available.
And there have been no objections or concerns raised, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Can entertain a motion at any time.
So moved. Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Brink.
Okay.
Did you get that?
We did.
Good.
What kind of wallpaper do you have rocking in the background there?
Well, actually, I couldn't make it today because I was in San Francisco, and that's the Golden Gate Bridge you see behind me.
Is that really? Are you really in San Francisco?
No.
Look at Brink, guys. You're at home. You're at
Yeah.
home.
I've got another background that's outer space I'll use next time.
All right,
This is one of those Disney World deals.
all right, moving on.
Okay. Let me sign the right one that time. Moving on to item 5. Consideration of and possible action on a resolution adopting amendments to 2020 budget to transfer funds to reimburse the city of Rockport. Once again, I think this is one we proposed earlier and sent it around, and now it's time to take final action on it. Is that correct, Mike?
Yeah, in fact, this was done even greater than 30 days ago. It was a long time ago. We just never, in looking through the documents with my attorney, he saw that this was not yet adopted. So that's why it's before you today.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Frank so moves. Larry seconds. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion's approved. Sign this one. Okay. There we go. Moving on to item 5, consideration and possible action on a resolution adopting amendment to 2020 budget. Wait a minute, we just did that. Did we not?
Yeah, you just did item 5.
Okay, I forgot to put a check mark in it. Item 6, consideration of and possible action on 2021 preliminary budget.
All right,
Okay, we got a food sheet here, Mike, we do.
we do. We've got several sheets there in front of you. The primary reason for this meeting, other than the resolution adoptions, were just to have the discussions. As you may remember, that we are required to provide a proposed budget prior to June 10th of every given year. And so we're prior to June 10th, but we want to hash out all the questions so that we can have all the good discussion today, so that when we have a meeting within 7 or 10 days from now, everybody's on the same page as far as the budget. So what you have in front of you, you'll have 2 sets of papers here, and I'll just look along with D here. Yeah, you have, what you have in front of you is you're looking at the 2020 proposed new appraiser option. That's for your reference to remember where we were last year. And then what you have in front of you here is the proposed 21 budget. And you can look at the differences, because on this 2021 proposed, you actually have the 2020 actuals right next to it. So you can actually see the differences therein. Items of note are going to be, your postage is increased. There's a Senate Bill 2 was passed that requires us to do the postcards next year. I put out a question to our printer who actually does that work, and I kind of gave her a rough estimation of our parcel count, and she gave us a number that was about $11,000. So you'll see that figure there.
Okay.
The other big one that you'll see is valuation services towards the bottom. There's a big increase there. And you'll remember part of those were the TREP and CoStar valuation services that we just recently had a resolution to adopt the budget amendment change for 2020. This is just a continuation of that. Also in the documentation that you have in front of you that's new is Pritchard Navitt is, they do our mineral and industrial property. They also have an appraiser there that does ag valuation property. So they do ag productivity value. That's an area that we've been weak in the past and continue to have trouble with here internally. And they actually provide that service. That service is $6,500 a year, and that's included in your valuation services. I have a breakdown of this as well. Should have a breakdown of both of those sheets behind here. The other one was the other resolution that was adopted previously, which was the BIS, which is the field software. You may remember a couple of meetings ago where we adopted a resolution for the 2020 amendment. And we did the BIS field software. So those three items, BIS, the ag, properties, and then you have TREP and CoStar, which are behind it. You should have TREP and CoStar. Those are just subscription services. They're all gonna fall under what we call valuation services. That's a really big one there.
Okay, so looking at 2021 proposed versus 2020 actual, no, excuse me, versus, yeah. It's $41,273 and change higher.
Right, if you're looking at, and there's I got two different proposals here. I should have two different proposals.
What is marked new appraiser option at the top of the page?
Yeah, that's last year's. That's actually last year's, just for reference. Okay, so in your documentation, in your iPad here, I gave you two options. One is an option that allows for an increase in salaries that's commensurate with 3% and 6% for some individuals. And the one that you're actually looking at right there, D, is the one without, the one that actually has just a few individuals that actually have an increase. And that is shown on this page. I'm sorry.
Are we looking at new appraiser option or the
No.
one that says not new appraiser option?
No, the one that does not say new appraiser option. Yeah. You'll notice that on here, behind this sheet, you have a salary staff option. Behind this sheet right here, Jack. And you'll notice that number comes at 475. You'll notice that this is the option that you have that's printed off with no salary increases except for the last three individuals on the list. You'll notice 6%, 6%, 3% for those individuals. I have the other option. I told him to print it. It's on here, and I will actually print it out right now. Eamon, can you have Val print this 21 proposed budget, the very first sheet? Get Josie involved. She knows which one. There should be two sheets printed. They only printed one.
Mine.
Yes, ma'am.
So we have one with new appraiser and we have this one. Behind new appraiser is a different sheet than what's behind this.
That's correct. The new
So,
appraiser,
I'm just thinking that's the one that you're missing right here. This is where everybody's proposed to raise.
yes, I'm so sorry.
So it's
Yes.
behind there.
Yes, it is. You are correct. I do have both here, and one says new appraiser option. It's not really a new appraiser. That's a header that should not be there.
That was
So,
cleared up from last
I'm
year.
really sorry about that. And yes, you do have both options here. One option is for increases at 3% with the exception of two appraisers that are going to earn their RPAs this next cycle, and that's Presley and Burke. And then the other option is in light of COVID and everything else, and maybe some budget tightening. The second option is no increases with the exception of the last three. So, yeah. Oh, but we already had it.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, guys. That threw me off with that new appraiser option because that looked like last year, but it's not.
I wonder, because there wasn't a difference in the two. I was real confused.
Well, actually, the new appraiser that carried over from last year, but if you'll see under 2021 proposed, it's $10,000
It's just 10 grand off.
more, which I'm assuming is the difference between these two salaries.
That's correct.
Right.
Because
Okay.
if you look, the personnel services are 475 here and they're 485 here. So
Right.
that's the only difference.
I got it. So the back page is included in the front page on both these. So the difference is not new appraiser, it's the,
It's whether we do 3% for everybody,
yep.
or if you wanted to I mean, in light of some different things, if you wanted to vote a different way, it's
Okay.
recognizing that and saying that there's 3 individuals that definitely are gonna earn RPAs, or really, Beth came on this last year, she was a new appraiser this, she's brand new this year, and she's really stepped up. So,
Okay, the 3% for everybody and slightly different for some they're earning new certifications, for lack of a better word.
Right.
Is 485.9,
rather than 475.9, yeah.
$10,000 difference.
Yeah, so you can do the whole thing and do $10,000 and,
And this, what we're doing is, this is agreeing to a preliminary budget, which will then be reviewed by the engineers.
well, we're not actually doing this today. What we're doing is having a discussion about it today so that I can write all the numbers down so that everybody can ask all the questions that they want to today. So that when I come back in about 7 to 10 days, we actually have the hard numbers and it's something, yes, we agree to that. Yes, we agree to that. Yes, we agree. Oh, I don't want to have any O's or hiccups. I want all
We have to approve this before.
June 10th.
Yeah, so yeah, okay.
So we have the opportunity to have one more meeting, which this is the reason I did it this way, so that we could have these discussions today and not be under the gun to actually approve this budget today. We're just kind of going through this so that we get to ask all the questions.
Yeah.
Evaluation services is a huge increase, but
I was gonna say, I have more questions only as a review. I'd like you to go through
sure,
the increases over last year because I couldn't follow the quick,
sure.
and what we approved before, just kind of
Yeah, and looking at the biggest increases that you have, and let me just use this one if I can, Dee. And this is the 2.
like starting at board of review expense. And I think we have I assume that's the sheet you printed out, right? It's got it's somewhere, right?
Yeah, you had it in your hand right there. Yep.
This one.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is,
You have number of, should be number of hours.
yeah, it's all there. Why is it different than last year?
We saw a number, we were over budget last year. The other thing is we did a kind of a call survey of other appraisal districts. And other appraisal districts, there's a lot of them that pay $100 a day rather than $70 a day. And we had concern from our ARB members that they'd like to be compensated more for their long days that they actually arbitrate hearings. And so that's where that number came from. And the best estimate that we could try to derive from the number of cases that we've had over the years. So that's the reason you see an increase there. It's about a $10,000 increase there.
So the $10,000 increase is going from $70 to $100 increase,
For
and
5 members and increased number of days.
and you anticipate more time they're going to spend this year. So it's a combination of the two.
Right,
Okay.
because we were over budget for the previous year. You have a slight increase in data processing just because that's what Harris Government gave us, that breakdown.
Is that in our handouts or not?
It's in here. I don't know if it's.
Yes, it's in the handout.
This is mine.
Yeah.
You got 49,730 compared to 45.
Harris Government in the top right-hand corner.
Yeah,
is their
4230.
name.
Um,
It says 2021 summary engagement.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you.
And that's the proposed invoice from a vendor. That's
Right, it's the main software that we use for PACS. It's like where we put every single property ID, all the cost models and everything in. And it's the support, which we use them a lot. I mean, they do our website configuration, they do other things.
That's not really discretionary unless we want to go out and look for another vendor.
That's great.
Get into a big
Yeah.
bargaining deal.
The board can, direct me to kind of look what's out there and try
And I'm
to
not
do that.
suggesting that, I'm just saying it's
We didn't buy more. We didn't do anything different. Their cost just went up and our usage went up accordingly, correct?
That's great.
okay. You talked about the appraisal review board, normalizing, if I can use that word,
Right.
compensation to what other districts are doing.
Right.
Generally,
There are other districts that are paying more. You've got big districts and small districts, and they do things differently. I just know that I've personally heard from some of my members at the ARB, And they've said, hey, why can't, why are we getting paid this? And, we do a lot during that time and they do. I mean, just to hear a day worth of hearings, a full day's docket is 32 hearings. And there have been times where we've actually had 32 hearings in that day and they're just wiped. And it's a full day for $70. It just seemed like,
And you said it's last year it's 6,000. We were over budget last year.
we were over budget. We were at 7,800. I have that number in here.
Oh, we went over budget. I got it. Okay.
Yeah, we went over budget. So
Okay, and the increase. There you go. I got it. Never mind, Mike. I got it. I'm back on.
yeah, let me tell you that number right here, Travis. Let's see. And it's board. It's called board. Hang on. Board of review expense. Yeah, we budgeted in 19 for 55 and we were at 72 and we suspect that this year we're going to be over budget and that's what we're trying to catch up along with the increase of the dollars per day.
No, that makes sense.
There's a spreadsheet that labeled at the top says January to December 2019.
Right.
So it gives you what was budgeted under the approved column and what was actual.
Right. And that's a good metric. Whenever we looked at this, we kind of looked at where we were there as well, Jerry, and we kind of said, okay, how are we doing in this category or that category? Where are some other notes of increase? Let me see. Your legal services, I'd like to say that that's pretty self-explanatory, but we've had the need to call him, like, if it's not a hurricane, then it's COVID. And if it's not COVID, then it's Zoom meetings. And it's the legality of sending out notices with, an in-person meeting versus a telephone conference versus, a video conference. I pick up the phone twice a week, easily.
Between Harvey, COVID, and
And the building.
there's been a lot of need.
Yeah.
I mean,
There
and
has been.
I appreciate you making sure that we're doing whatever we're doing appropriately.
Yeah.
Refresh my memory, we on a calendar year.
Yeah.
The other, the postage fees we already talked about, that should be in your documentation. It says Veriverge. And it's,
That's basically a rate increase as well as, or do regulation, if you will. Require you to send out these postcards.
yeah, in Senate Bill 2, in the month of August, not this year, but for next year, we're required to actually send out a postcard notice that says to everybody, you can look at our website to find the rates and all the values. And it's a requirement that was passed from Senate Bill 2. I said, how much is that going to cost? The lady kicked back $11,000. So that's where you got that.
Right.
Driven by new regulations.
I realize I view numbers maybe differently than most people in the room, but if we're on a calendar year, your 2020 actual still is really a projection, is it not?
That's correct. And
So why don't we have a column that tells us where we are actually compared to projected in 2020?
we do. We have, like Jerry indicated, we have a January through December of 19 to actually see where we were over budget or where we were under budget. And we also have another
Do we have
spreadsheet. And we have another spreadsheet that actually has January through April of this year. And you can kind of see where we are. Is that one printed, the January through April?
Yeah.
The January through April of this year. Let's see.
This is what I brought from home.
Okay.
This is today's.
January through April of this year. Does everybody have that?
Mm-hmm.
That's January through December. And this is your, and this is January through April of this year. And you can kind of see that this is 33% of the year is through April, the end of April. And you can kind of see where we're at right here.
Yeah. Okay, so we do have it.
Yes, sir. It's just what's going to be presented in the chief appraiser's report, but it's all connected.
No, that was good. I'm glad you made that comment because you're right. We're calendar year and we're way the hell out from action. So last year, we increased legal last year quite a bit. And then this year, we're going to increase it a little bit more.
That's correct. We went, So from 2020 actual.
We had a big increase last year.
Yeah, the 2020 actual budget was 19,000 and now we're going to 22, an increase of $3,000.
Yeah, year before we made a big one.
Right. All I can say is that when we looked at this just yesterday, we were looking at the legal fees and I said, okay, what's our last, like, where are we at through the year? And, projected out, I wanted to build some into that. So that's where I'm coming up with the 22. So where are you seeing for the legal fees right there, Jack?
19 projected, $7,500.
So where there's, is it 39?
You're slightly over. And those are never linear.
Right. So if January through April represents 33% for legal services, typically I'm at 39%, I'm a little bit over that. That would project out to, if you did that over a 12-month period, that'd be like more like 12%. So I'm doing like this,
Okay, you're not ready for discussion on this?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we can talk about, that's the reason we're having this meeting, is to ask all the questions we want to ask.
Okay. Tell me why, let's start from the.
January, now we're talking January through December,
Well,
January through April, I'm sorry,
through April.
2020.
And I look down and I see unemployment insurance, which is negligible, but it's at 51%. What would make it go up in 3 months, half a year?
Unemployment insurance, why would it make it go up half of the year? What does that mean?
Well, you're a third of the year, but your expense of what you budgeted is at 51%. In other words, you're tracking well ahead on your unemployment insurance. And I would think that'd be a fairly static number. Do we just pay it once a year or twice a year?
I can get that answer. Let me get that answer.
Okay.
Let me bring that in. And that's the reason we're having a discussion. No, that's good.
You can get back to me on it.
No, be right back.
Do you see the difference of what was paid in 2019?
No,
Big
ma'am.
difference, $81 for the whole year in 2019.
So we've had claims filed. It's not an annual, it's not a normal premium. It's must get some claims filed.
I don't know.
Yeah, let's look at the
I don't think
previous,
so.
let's look at January through December and see where we were on that same line item. Unemployment insurance. You see,
Well, you spent $81, so you didn't
right,
spend anything of what you budgeted. So I guess the
Right.
question would this be,
An invoice that came in late, it got paid in 2020 or
okay,
something, I don't know how
the
it works.
question is how often do we get unemployment charges, like unemployment? We get it how often and what does it represent? Because
Okay.
we did 2,700, but we only spent 81, but this year-
Unemployment, the tax rates fluctuate every year. It depends, I don't know how they figure it out. One year it could be really, really low, the next year it's high. I couldn't. And
Well-
how they figure that out, and it's not just
we
with
just get a bill and
us.
pay it?
yeah, we just get a bill and pay.
Okay. Do we have evidence that it's because we had claims filed?
It's not because unemployment has to do, I don't think they just go with our appraisal district or our office. I think it has to do with the whole.
Group,
Texas. Yeah.
is it TML?
Um,
Not
let me go
TML,
look
but I
at it.
mean, it's the group. I can tell you that we have not had any
Any claims.
claims because we haven't had anybody leave us in
Yeah.
4 or 5 years. Well, 3
Right.
years, 3 years.
Here's my thought process, because everybody needs the numbers. If you only spent $81 last year, first thing I would do is look at what we spent the year before. If it was
I could bring you
$75,
both tax rates.
$80, then I would say, okay, why would we have a significant jump? Is it,
We've called them and the way they stated, it's not with our office. It has to do with the whole in general.
Does it have to do with the industry?
Mhm.
Okay, so it has to do with the appraisal district industry.
And I can show you 2 years difference on their rate that they figure out. I can bring that.
If you'd like to change the budget, the reality is this, we only paid $81.19, for which we had a $2,700 budget. We still had a $2,700 budget in
Look at
20,
tax rates for 19.
and we're already 51% of that. Claim, like, not even a claim, but we've already paid 51% of that.
well, the actual answer, I think, is you have no control over it.
I know.
Sounds like.
No,
That sounds to me like it's one of those
So,
And I can move on with that. That's the way I look at budgets. When I say, okay,
Sure.
why are we,
yeah, so from a budgetary standpoint, what do? I got 81 plus I got 51%. I just leave it alone and just see what comes.
well, see, I won't ask the question next year because now I know you don't have control over it.
Okay, well, good. This is good. This is all good. I remember last year, Frank, you're still with us, right?
I'm still with you. Yes, I just had you on mute.
I remember last year, we were having these same discussions during the meeting for which we had to approve the budget. It was really stressful. And it's not as stressful because we get to ask the questions, get to, have all the yachts and tittles that are coming around, so.
And long-term disability wasn't a function in 2019, so that's why that's new,
That's correct.
or why it's the dollars new.
Right. And you can see that on the sheet behind where it has the individuals, where it has the position salaries. You can see that last year it was $222, it's 210. That's what we're actually paying. So,
This is 19, and then this is like this 120. It's a different. And like I said, they don't just go to that from our office, it's the whole in general. The rates change every year and it's not something that we
we control.
control. Not fair.
I'm just thinking how else to have a better way of balancing your budget, just pass it on. It's not our fault.
See the difference?
Oh, yeah, but
Again, to the next one.
again, I just,
And do we get a bill for this that we pay, or is it something you figure on your,
Oh, it's on
and your
our
payroll?
It's a quarterly, and it's on the quarterly.
And is it
Well,
something we calculate, or is it something that you get a bill
They-
for?
They have a website, you go on it, and you just plug in our numbers.
Like our
and it
salary
calculates,
numbers?
And it figures that out.
okay, let me just read this because it's a number that just floors me. Item number 1, the adjusted amount of benefits paid to all claimants of tax political subdivisions in 2019, a negative $1.5 million. That number ought to be a question by itself. How do we pay a negative?
Meaning that they didn't, yeah.
And then in the following year, in 2020, March of 2020, that being the calendar year before, and the state's probably not on calendar year, probably on October year, they paid out $15 million. So there was a $17 million swing between these two numbers in a year.
And they're spreading it to us, yeah.
And the percentage is based on our salary numbers, and we did see an increase in both salaries and the rate.
Right, I think it's supposed to be on the rate. So the
Yeah.
big difference for one is.
Yeah, there'd be some nominal difference, but, yeah, $17 million swing in payouts.
If you'd like us to write a letter or something, we can, but,
No.
okay.
You said it when you don't have any control over it, you just get a bill and you pay it.
There you go.
I'd be asking whoever you can at some point, if I had time, I would say, can you explain to me why we had a negative $1.5 million payout followed by a $15 million payout?
I assume every appraisal district in the state is experiencing the same kind of joy with this.
Well, yeah.
It seems like they might be the ones that,
And that looks like it's not limited to a president.
I bet
yeah,
it's
it's
not.
probably
Well,
broader than that.
Yeah.
Well, it actually says tax political subdivision. The appraisal district is called a political subdivision. It's one of the few in the state. So we actually are grouped in with
Your
everybody
county,
else.
your city,
You
your
want
town,
to question
all that.
this, I think it's better through an association or something.
Yeah. And not only that, but when you consider COVID
Oh, yeah,
and
appraisal
all of
district.
the increased unemployment that's happened, that number is likely to go up. I don't think we should mess with the number.
Do you need one?
I mean, not.
Well, I don't think you have any choice except just rock along and put a number out there it's your best guess
That's right.
for that. Okay. Whizzing right along.
Sure.
Capital outlay.
Mike, whenever you went to evaluation services, again, we went over that real fast and said, you go
Yeah,
over that
I can show you that right here. So
for the slow people in the room, will you go over it
for
me?
valuation services,
Myself.
the increase is the 43 8 that we had just for Pritchard Navitt to do our minerals and industrial. That's that
Which has always been there, right?
That's
We've
always
always
been-
used the same thing. It's always been, yes,
Yeah.
okay.
a couple of years ago it was 46 or something like that.
But the standard, we've always done that, okay.
One of the things that I'd like to propose to add, and I'd really like to have, is this ag valuation. It's called Pritchard Navitt. It's the same
Okay.
company. They have a person that specializes in productivity values. So they go get stock prices of calves.
The ag part would be new.
The ag part
The
is
ag
new.
part would be new,
The ag part is new. We've muddled through before.
right?
And
With
we're-
the ag advisory board or something,
Right.
right? We added something
We'll
because
still have the ag advisory board. We just
Okay.
we'll have somebody that really.
it's always been stated historically, we really don't have a lot of ag, so we get a couple people together and but it was always, I think, said that it was tough.
marginalized.
It was tough because we don't have,
We don't have really expertise in that field.
okay.
And so we have somebody in this guy right here.
Do we have enough ag values? Now, this may be a stupid question, so if it is, forgive me. Do we have enough ag values that we're appraising that it makes a difference, that it warrants getting expertise in?
It really doesn't alleviate our responsibility to appraise it accurately. So if we're gonna get tested on it, we get tested on it through map reviews and through like ag advice. Where's all your ag advisory board minutes? Why did you not use this cattle price from Beeville? You know, those are the kinds of questions that we're getting. And the reality is I'd like to just hand that off to somebody that really knows what they're doing and has a good track record. In this, it's through the same company, and I'd like to use it.
What's the cost?
$6,500. The other elements of the valuation increase, valuation services increase, have to do with TREP, which this board did a budget resolution for the TREP and CoStar. That has to do with, and we'll talk about this in just a little bit, about our PBS studies, how we had 2 failures, one in Aransas Pass ISD and one in Aransas County ISD. I have some good news is that through our petition, we were able to agree that we passed in the confidence interval for Aransas Pass. So one of our 2 districts is now in. The PBS for the Aransas County ISD, and I was going to get into this later, but we might as well talk about it. The Aransas County ISD, we're still in the appeals process with the comptroller. Basically, the comptroller believes that our valuations were too low in specific areas. One was the commercial real estate area. They, meaning the comptroller, use an income model valuation. We did not in the past use an income model valuation. Therefore, we needed a service by which we could subscribe to and get data, not much unlike MLS, but specifically to income data in commercial properties and say, what are these properties worth? How do they transact? Well, they transact on the income stream. How much is that cool storage making, or how much is that boat barn making, or how much is that hotel making? And what does that look like from an income methodology? What does that look like? And so TREP and CoStar, again, this is something that this board actually approved for a resolution to actually get those subscription services. This is just a continuation. So that 11,000, I have those numbers down. I should have TREP and CoStar. Do y'all have that in front of you?
TREP and CoStar?
Yeah. You see?
So, yeah.
Yeah, TREP and CoStar are there, and those numbers add up. And I did them for, there's CoStar and there's TREP. So if you add those numbers up, those are monthly fees. That's 600 and this is 394.
So Mike, what do these 2 do? Just out of curiosity, what's the difference? What's TREP and CoStar do?
They provide us income methodology. They provide us not income methodology. Eamon, you want to weigh in?
Yeah.
Eamon's our commercial appraiser here.
Yeah. So CoStar is a listing service for commercial properties. They actually aggregate sales listings. That's where you go to sell and buy a commercial property.
Okay.
As a result of that, they have really good data on what things are actually selling for.
Market value of commercial
Right.
property.
And a lot of live listings that we wouldn't see without the subscription. On
Okay.
top of that, they poll the business owners, hey, on this transaction, you want to tell us what your actual cap rate was? Do you want to tell us what your expenses are? They just ask. obviously the property owners are under no obligation to tell them anything. So they get really good sale data, but as far as expenses and business operating data, it's sort of hit or miss. The state uses CoStar as a kind of a golden ruler as far as how much things are worth. If it's CoStar says
The
it's
state
3
does, so
million,
the state
it's
puts-
3 million.
Okay.
The
And
state's
TREP-
using the same services.
Okay.
TREP is they provide internal data from companies that are backed by commercial mortgages. So in the annex of the mortgage-backed security, they'll say this bundle of businesses includes 3 Dollar Generals, 2 RV parks, and 15 self-storages. And in verifying that this is like good quality bundled together, they have to say, this is our expenses for the year, this is our income, this is our revenue, they have to put everything in there. This company
And
has said,
associated appraisal sometimes.
yeah, they said we have this data because we're trying to service these loans, do this stuff for multifamily, for apartments, and obviously nobody walks out and buys an apartment, you know. So you have to value them based on a moving set of data. This is basically the only way to get it. And the state does use TREP as well. Although I will say that in the PVS that we got, they didn't show us any TREP data. So we found it incredibly useful, but I don't know to what extent the state is using it. But these two
We know that
things,
they have subscriptions.
yeah, these two things and CoStar will apparently they just purchased a company that aggregates operating expenses for short-term rentals and VRBO type things, Airbnbs, you know, short home away, all that kind of stuff. So we might be getting even more value out of our CoStar subscription on that front. But basically, if you don't have this kind of thing, because Texas is a non-disclosure state, it's impossible to do an income valuation. And the comptroller is telling us income producing properties should be valued on income. And that is how they're transacted. When they're done on a commercial fee appraisal, they're done on income, no matter what they are.
So in summary, the valuation services increase two of those elements. There's 4 elements, and I'll go over them together. One is the ag that we talked about. The other one is TREP. Third one is CoStar. And the last one is the field services software that this board, again, approved a resolution on that we did last fall. This is a continuation.
Tax?
Field services software, it's BIS.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
BIS.
So all of those 4 that you listed, that totals the 68,000. And does that include Harris Govern also?
No, that includes Pritchard Navin, the 43.8 of the previous year of 2020 actuals. The 43.8 is Pritchard Navin, which is minerals and industrial. That's always there.
Okay.
Okay, and then, so the difference between the 43.8 and the 68 is the 4 that I've indicated.
Okay.
Where you're gonna see tax is the actual,
I saw it earlier.
49,000
Yeah.
data process.
Okay, yeah.
And the increase, we had some of these last year as well, but not for a full year, is that right?
Yeah, we did them for 20 for a resolution to like, hey, we need this right now. And this board said, yeah, go ahead and do it. What we're saying is we needed continuing, you know,
And so,
3 of the 4.
so CoStar is for valuations. This is also for valuations, but this is what we give you income-based valuation data, right?
Yes, for the most
TREP,
part.
Not
TREP
CoStar.
gives us internal data for the businesses themselves, but not necessarily sale prices. The other one gives us sale prices, but not necessarily the data that makes it up.
Got it.
Um,
And Mike, this contract for professional appraisal services, mineral, is that
That's just Pritchard Navin, just to show you that it hasn't changed.
what we've always done?
What
This is-
we've always
Yes, okay. So the only new one that we didn't have last year is the ag, that we are truly adding an additional service, which we never had ag
And
expertise.
it is through, it's under the same company as Pritchard Navin, so we'll probably receive, you know, I don't know what that'll look like as an invoice, but it's under the same company. The IT replacement that you'll see right there, you'll notice that number last year was 21,000. It dropped to 7,007. or 7107. That number is derived from a Datto expense. You'll recall that the Datto is the backup services in Austin that we talked about with Colin. And we've got it split with Jerry. You'll notice that on the revenue section up at the top, it says the same number, 7107. So it's basically that number is 13,800 plus 3% for, we don't know if they're going to go up or not. They haven't given us anything, but that's where that number comes from.
Well, if I look at the 2.5-year history here, you had 63,000 budgeted in 2019, you spent 53. You're pretty confident you don't have any big equipment expense to.
No, we just spent it in December of 19. We had it planned for late February and then COVID. So we have all the software actually we have the hardware over at that location. And this is at the City Services Center. We have it there, but actually plugging in the wires, they said that they wouldn't do it until we were done with our certification. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, Colin couldn't get it done beforehand. So, and then, I mean, I don't know what to tell you, but COVID happened in between. So that's where we're at. The other is I don't know, what else do we have? The largest is the evaluation services, personnel services, of course. That's commensurate with the 3% across the board with the exception of 2 individuals. And if you look at those on the second page, which has the salary survey, those 2 individuals are going to be RPA trained by the 21 cycle, which means that they would have gone through their certification. That's a valuable certification. Anybody that has that can be an RPA appraiser anywhere in the state. And I want to keep those guys. They're good to my team. And they definitely.
That one was, everybody in there is 485 total for personnel.
That's correct. So the only difference, if we wanted to keep everybody to the 3%, which is commensurate, then it would be, there's only a $10,000 difference.
Here's my thought on that. I think today, one, it's not really noticed, we think about, how we discuss that. I'd budget the higher number and then we can decide how much to put that. That give anybody a problem?
Say that again.
Because if we budget the higher number, does anybody know what the county's gonna do this year?
Oh, I see.
Are the
Jerry, do you know?
No, I've not heard.
Excuse me, Mike,
Yeah, right.
this is Brink. I lost the screen of the meeting.
Oh, that's true. I can fix it.
Can somebody fix that?
Thank you. While we're waiting to fix that, I see an increase in education, meals, and hotels. Does that go along with that certification they're working on?
Say that one more time.
Education, meals, and hotel does that go along with certification?
Yeah, we have, along with our appraisal staff, we have Jackie, Ray, Scott, Eamon, our 4 main appraisers. We also have she's our office manager. She needs to be aware of all the appraisal activities because she handles so much of both. And then we have Beth as our new appraiser that came on last year. Again, she split time as well. You just need to know that she's been used in the front office staff just as much as she's been, probably even more front office staff this year when she just started than she's doing the appraisal, but she's got to take all her classes too. So,
But I thought so.
yeah.
But where are you talking about you see an increase? Just in the percentage or?
Well, if you look at
I'm not seeing.
education, meals, and hotels, 13,000 budgeted in 2019. And essentially 12.8 was what was spent. And then we're at 18,000.
For 2020.
Yeah, we added an appraiser. We added a person that's going to need all their education.
And probably this COVID, it kind of slowed that part down, didn't it?
You mean
Education and
what we've
stuff
had? Yeah,
for 2020 so far right now?
yeah, and just generally speaking, we don't take classes until
During this month,
certification. We don't take classes really from January through certification. We don't really take very many classes because we're so busy.
Right.
And then there's this kind of lull, and then we got to start the next year cycle, and that's when everybody in the falls get the, so it's always backloaded.
I think the way I should have phrased the question was, is, we had a $13,000 budget, spent 12.8. We bumped it to 18, but have spent a fraction of that. And so it's effectively an increase unless we think we're going to spend it. It may not be a budgeted increase, but we're fractionally using that number. And if it's because of training, then that's why.
Yeah, and the difference between 19 and 20 is that we actually added a whole new person that needs all of their training. So.
Okay.
I guess what you need us to do, Mike, is, I don't know if adopt is the right word, but agree that one of these sets of numbers.
Yeah, that's the reason we're having the discussion today, because I want to be able, like, if you say a big check mark on this particular one or that particular one, I want to be able to come to this next meeting so that there's no questions. That's why all the questions and the good conversations happen today.
I guess I would like to go back to Dee's comment about maybe go with a higher number on the salaries, because at this point we don't know. But by adopt or proposing that budget, aren't we proposing that we give them those raises?
Yeah.
Well, we're not proposing it today. And if nothing else, because the verbiage in your agenda item says consideration and possible action on a preliminary budget discussion.
Right.
By nature, it's a preliminary budget discussion. You can't pass it. You can say
Right.
which way we're leaning.
Right.
And the final budget discussion has to happen by June something or another.
Well, that's the proposed budget that this board says we've looked at, y'all looked at and said, this is what we're going to hand the entities. And the entities then have until August to adopt that budget. And then we come back and actually have a resolution to adopt that budget in August of every year. So that's the way it works. That's the way it's done every year. So.
One of the flaws of, what I was thinking is, county's not gonna come up with anything until, what, July?
Yeah. We start having budget hearings, I think, towards the end of June.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, but we probably won't adopt till middle of August or the third week in August.
Frank, are you still listening in?
Frank, can you see us?
Yes, I can. I'm with you. I don't follow along precisely as I'd like, but I've got the gist of it and I'm doing well.
Well, you're right to point out the difference in the county. Consider that the school district has to adopt its budget the third week of August. So they have to have your number to be able to do that, or they simply plug in the best guess of what they think it's going to be. So it's a huge blob from 1963, the way that they have to.
Yeah, and again, I don't mean to say we have to do what the county does. We do not have to do what the county does. We're independent. But that informs our decision.
I will say this, the reason I gave you two options just in light of the COVID stuff, but I want to say my staff has just been awesome throughout this whole thing. And not only just the three that I recommended in the second option, but all of them have been awesome. I mean, not only through the hurricane, but through this COVID. And
But your second three are driven basically by
it's merit.
we would call a promotion. Or they're getting a
Yeah, they're
higher
getting,
level certification.
right. But I just wanted, and not only that, but I wanted to draw attention to the fact that the 3% would represent about $10,000. On a roughly $1 million budget, you're talking what?
Brent, you've usually got some
1%,
pretty good
so
thoughts about, the salary business. And, what, do you have anything to offer with regard to this, to my comment, positive or negative, that's not gonna hurt my feelings.
No, it looks about right to me, moving forward.
This is the one.
What's longevity? I
Longevity,
know what longevity is. I meant on this spreadsheet. What is it?
yeah, longevity pay is based on the number of years that a person has,
Is it set? I mean, is that a set rate or is that something?
$100 a year for the number of years. And that's, yeah, it's up to.
That's, I mean, it's in the policy somewhere. That's okay.
Up to $1,500, up to 15 years, and then it just caps.
That's
That's
what the county says.
Yeah. And we actually adopted that in the fall, I think.
Yeah, I just wanted, I thought I should make sure it was part of
Last
it.
year, I think.
Yeah.
we adopted.
Yeah.
I knew we thought- Okay,
So it's commensurate with whatever that policy is.
that's fine. We have a policy we're following.
Yeah.
You
And
didn't make it up yesterday.
And you need to know that the second page is really important for the salaries because it does all the calculations for the group benefits, both the retirement, which we looked at that rate and, as of
Yeah.
yesterday. And then the insurance, we got the latest rates, and then the long-term disability, it's the actual rate that we're paying. So all of that's calculated. This is my best estimation of what it's gonna cost to run the district in 21.
So when you propose the meeting to
This is, it's up to like between now and June 10th, but sooner rather. I need a 3-day window.
Others,
So- I need a 3-day window, and I can't think of any other things that I need that like are really. I mean, I might give more information if I know anything else about PBS study, but other than that, or map review. But other than that, I just need a 3-day window from that time.
You mean to post?
I'm sorry?
To post?
Post,
Yes, I need to post
Okay,
it.
so June 10th is what day? Wednesday? Correct? Wednesday, June 10th, so you have to post on Friday or Monday, which is your 3-day limit. If you're
It's-
backing up 3 days, then you have to post on Friday. So you have a June 2nd, 3, 4, 5, you would have to post by
The
June
5th,
5th or
next Friday,
next Friday.
to have it on the 10th, right?
That's your absolute drop dead.
Uh-huh. But even if I did it on the 9th, the 5th would still work.
Yeah.
Because it's 72 hours over the weekend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you want to do it on the 9th or 10th, I still have to post by the 5th.
I'm kind of with Jerry. It's
do it on the 9th, you do it.
after
Just a
2.
little wiggle room.
After 2 o'clock. Or you could do it, I mean, we could do it the 4th, which is next Thursday. But I'd much rather do it like on the 9th, which gives us another,
That's fine with me, I don't.
9th on Tuesday afternoon at 2:30.
Just on a personal note, we've got a grandchild due any minute now, and we don't know whether we're going to get to see or not. So I'm serious. It's like,
Sure.
who knows
Okay,
how the cards fall?
okay.
I'd say get it on the calendar and just try to live with it as best we can.
Get it on the 9th.
9th at 2:30. 9th at
Night is
2:30.
Tuesday.
Is that next
9th is
Tuesday? Next
Uh,
Tuesday?
Yes.
No,
No,
two
Tuesday.
Tuesdays from now.
2 weeks. out.
Okay, that works for me.
Good.
What time? 2:30?
2:30.
30, okay. Yeah, just, a lot of good discussion here, and I think it's good. We got a lot of different perspectives, and I think that's good. As I look at where the big increases were, border review expenses, we talked about that. That's driven by trying to get their compensation up to a competitive level. And the one thing I can say, we don't want to cheap out on people on that ARB. That's not an easy job. I wouldn't want it. So, that's the basis for that one. You're down 2,000 on auto expenses. Is that partly driven by some of the technology that you've gotten and
That's right.
not having to drive so much? So, there's an offset to maybe some increases somewhere else. data processing is kind of driven by the vendor,
That's correct.
unless we want to shop around like the old song says. Legal services, you know, one, you don't use them unless you decide you need them for some reason. But with everything that's going on, it's probably useful to have a little extra available for that, if you need it.
What's your principal ingredient in miscellaneous expense?
Yeah.
You know, that's a really good question. I will have an answer for you in just a moment.
I think, that always bothered me, and yet everybody has it, and people have justified it.
No, but I want to have my bookkeeper just actually say it's this and this and this and that. It's things that I would have signed off on for sure. But hang on.
Postage and fees is driven basically by a regulatory change that requires those postcards. And we talked about the valuation services and, you know, the four components of the increase.
So Josie, the question is like, what do we typically spend on miscellaneous expenses? And it's things I definitely would have like put my initials on, but I don't remember.
But right now, we're doing the backup where we have our storage inventory.
That's right. We moved a whole bunch of our files. This is one of the plans that we have to do this year is to get that kind of retrofitted with some, to make it dry and air conditioned space, this storage back here. But after the storm, we immediately moved all of our old rolls up to Victoria. I don't know if you remember, you weren't here at that time, but we moved them all to a storage location, but that's one.
That's why, and just any other miscellaneous.
I guess my suggestion is when you have something like that and you've plugged a number in there a couple of years in a row, then it's not a miscellaneous expense anymore. Take it up, put it on your ledger.
Got it. Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Josie.
You're welcome.
I forgot about that, but yeah. And that's the biggest portion of that, I believe.
So we don't really need a motion.
Well,
Or do we?
I don't think you can where you're.
yeah, we're just,
Yeah,
Well, your motion is to have a meeting on.
right.
in
Have a meeting on the, okay, well, maybe, I'll have to have a meeting on the 2:30 on the 9th to discuss whatever this one that has the 485 of personnel services. Get the title on the thing.
which has the total, you might want to read that.
That's 485.
Uh,
Total of $1,049,000, which is up 51,000, which is up about 5%, I guess. Yeah, 5.15%.
I hesitate asking you to do it that way. Because there may be changes their mind between now and then. And basically, you're adopting it by saying what your motion is going to be.
Okay, so we'll,
You have the option to adopt the budget in one form or another on Tuesday the 10th.
okay,
We have two proposals, how people think.
that sounds like a good motion.
Actually, on the 9th, we will be proposing a budget.
That is correct.
We don't adopt until
later.
We will, okay.
This
Thank
is the
you,
most
Gary, that's a
common,
good point.
no government entity should have to do what
Sorry.
you guys do. No, it's just.
I agree. So we are voting to propose a budget on the 9th and adopting it.
We're gonna start to
At the
get ready,
appropriate
almost
time.
get ready to go.
Yes, because you have to
Yes.
propose it first so
Got it.
you can notice all the entities.
That is correct.
Or we could adopt a budget to propose. Beat them at their own game.
That's right. All right, so that takes care of item number,
Take care of
Hey,
that.
odd. Okay. Um, Yeah, that's item 6.
yeah.
Consideration. Yeah. Got my check mark again. Okay, item 7, consideration of possible action on the chief appraiser's report.
All right, under the chief appraiser's report, we have the supplemental and appraisal roll presentation that's in your documentation. It's only on your pad here.
Good.
And that's the one that I have to present to you and say that I'm presenting groups 282 through 299 of the supplemental detail. It's the one that you can't even talk about. It's just a supplemental detail roll. This latest detail has, again, just like this board, I actually have to present it. You may or may not know this, but I have to present it before the ARB, which is the Appraisal Review Board. And we actually have discussions. We can actually have discussions about why did you change the role to this or that? And it could be up, down, or sideways as far as evaluation. Typically, the reductions in value due to a late exemption or something like that. So anyways, that's a supplemental role. The other is financials. So we've talked about this a little bit.
Mike?
In your,
Mike,
yes.
quickly, could somebody email me a copy of the presentation that they had there? Not right now, but just so I can look at it later.
Yeah, it was emailed to you before the beginning of the meeting, Dean. Brink.
I didn't see it, so.
Okay. If you didn't receive it, then I will send it to you again for sure.
Okay, well, I'm not saying I didn't receive it. I'm saying I can't find it, so.
Yes, sir. Those are
Okay.
two different things. I can help with one, but not the other.
It takes a long time to get it to San Francisco.
I got it.
Hey, when you go to space, I'm definitely not going to be able to help you. All right, the other was the financials. The financials are, we've talked about this a little bit. It's the January through December, the January through April of 20. And you'll note on that spreadsheet that January through April represents 33% of the year. And the associated percentages are on the right-hand side of what each one of those columns are. So you'll see whether we're on target or above, over budget based on the third of the year calculation. I'll entertain any questions that you might have.
It's already been done that. I'm fine with it. I just, again, it seems like the way that it's written is we're supposed to approve it. And I think it's really just a report.
It's just a report.
Yeah. I would just say, don't click action items when it is just a report, and we don't get ourselves in a trap where somebody says, well, you didn't take action.
Okay. You can accept my report as an action. Like I'm reporting on all of these things and you just say,
Don't
okay.
start a precedent.
I'm sorry?
Don't start a precedent.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, no, I think this.
You just give us the report. If we have questions, you report back to us.
Report on. Bang, 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 bang.
Okay, I got it. So in future,
It'll be just a report.
yeah, just a chief appraiser report. Yep. Okay. The next one is the report on the property value study findings. We talked about this a little bit. We have two school districts within the county. We have the Aransas Pass ISD. We have the Aransas County ISD. We have a small portion of Port Aransas, but Port Aransas ISD is never studied because we have so few parcels there that it just doesn't. It's the lighthouse and probably 50 other properties, and that's it. So of those two, we, in our initial findings of PVS, property value studies from the comptroller, we were found to be out of confidence, which means that you have a 3-year period of this that goes down, and you're found out of confidence, and you have another year, and then by the 3rd year, they start levying, they start hurting the school district. They basically start asking for money back. So in this particular case, we have 2 school districts. We appealed both. In one, the Aransas Pass ISD, we prevailed just by with the evidence that we sent in. Hey, this house that you used for a sale was damaged on the 1st of the year and you didn't take that into account. So we did the same thing for Aransas County ISD. We're not quite there. So the appeals process is this. They send you their documentation of the properties that they use in the study. You rebut the evidence based on what you see, and then either you agree or don't. In this case, Aransas Pass, we actually agreed. Aransas County ISD, we did not. And therefore, we are scheduled for a hearing in person, or maybe it's a virtual, an in-person hearing sometime, and they're going to notify us of what that date is. It's going to be sometime this summer. And so we get to actually make our case like on sample number 28 on the residential property that you used here, we disagree that you should use that as a sample because of X, Y, Z. And so that's our case that we get to make. I will tell you that some of the places that we were most efficient was in our category. So you have categories and then you have stratums. Category A is residential property. Category C is vacant land. Category F is commercial, okay? So in those, we had kind of our worst places. Our category A, residential, stratum 2, which is the lowest stratum because they throw out the most number 1. So on stratum 2, we had the worst ratios. So what they would get is they would get a little old house, and where we had it historically and maybe after storm and maybe a little bit of renovation after that, we might have, let's say hypothetically, we had it on for $60,000, but it's sold for 105. And we might have gotten, like that sale may have occurred even after January 1 of 19. We're talking about a 2019 valuation. So some of our cases are going to be like, well, that's all fine and good, but did you take into consideration that it wasn't in the same state on January 1 that it was at the time of the sale? Furthermore, one of our primary things that we're going to petition the state for is actually say that in this 12-month period, and so they take from June, basically June to June. So they take June to 18 to June of 19, and you have a January 1 of 19 valuation right in the middle. Well, hypothetically, purportedly, you're supposed to have a random sample that covers the correct amount of samples from each quarter within that year, meaning that you can't all take them from September of 18, all 100 samples. You have to try to spread them out accordingly. Well, in this case, one of the cases that we're trying to make is, listen, we had to put out notices in April for which you gathered a sale in June, right before the deadline, for which the condition of this home on January 1st is different than it was over here. And so those are the kinds of cases we're going to make. I'm going to tell you that when we did our last calculations, we're only 2.3% outside of the confidence interval. You have to be within either 105 or 95 on 100% valuation, and we're at 2.3% underneath this lower confidence interval. So there's not very far for us to go, but it's really hard. And I'm just giving you the information so that I'm just reporting on the facts, that that's where I'm at.
2.3 points under the 95?
That's correct. So we're at 91.7 or 92.7 or whatever, 92.7. Yeah. That's my latest calculation on if they accept and, you know, where they had us in the last pushback, and then we push back again. So that's where we're at.
So the hearing will be this summer, not specifically scheduled yet.
To my knowledge, that's correct. The next is the appeal season, report on appeal season. So as you may have heard, values went up. Values went up based on sales that occurred that we had in our hand prior to this whole COVID thing popping off. And so there's two things kind of at play. One, we have the state who says we're too low. We have some areas that we need help, right? I talked about A1. Another one of those big areas was F1 or F, commercial properties. We talked about TREP valuation. We talked about CoStar income valuation properties. That's another area that we had large increases this year. It just happened. We needed to boat barns, cool storages, hotels, retail centers, you know, like Harbor Oaks or one of those kinds of strip centers. We did those on income model valuations. Why? Because the comptroller is doing it that way. These are not actual transactions of sales that they can actually do a sales ratio study on us. Because in category F, the transactions happen less frequently. So what they're doing is appraisals. And when they do appraisals, what do they use? Not a sales comparison approach because there's no sale. They're doing a valuation on an income model valuation. So we're using that same kind of information to go back to try. So we have this happening here. we have to make those corrections. So if we have this knowledge here that says, listen, the state is going to grade us and they're going to grade us by income, then guess what? We need to get that income data and make our best evaluations that we can based on that information. So
This is why you're using a third-party source, because if you call up John Doe Restaurant,
they're
that's gonna tell you where you can put that.
That's exactly right. You got it. You got it. And so that's another area that we actually increase values. Looked at the overall valuation from the prelim number, we're up almost 11%. It's more than 10%, not quite 11. So from last year's January or certified value to this year's notice value that we handed out, we're up over 10%.
Overall.
But you might have things that are higher in some areas or regions or sectors, and then you might have some that are lower. You might have some that are flat. We had a few places that actually went down.
No, you're talking about the residential, commercial, ag, everything combined mineral.
Everything combined, it's over 10%.
And how much of that was attributed to going to the income?
I think the income increase represented 56 million of the 417 million.
Increase?
Yeah.
So 10% of the 10%?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was 417 million. I think, 417 sticks in my head. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I can get that number if you want me to get that number, but yes, we increased values. So the 10% is right. The 10% is correct. I mean, I just don't remember the millions of dollars of increase, but.
So a commercial property owner gets his increase and he says, what comparables did you use? You say, oh, we used the income approach. Are you at liberty to tell them what source that information came from?
We're required to. And we're gonna actually hand them, these are comparable properties. Like if you're a strip center, then you're gonna get a strip center. If you're a boat barn, you're gonna get boat barns. And you're gonna get the income methodology and the, states, actuals and revenues of other boat barns. And you're gonna get a price per square foot, and you're gonna get all that data.
And the companies doing this, are they doing it by region so that Dallas and Houston would be higher than?
Yes, they do have breakdowns of that. And then you try, like our commercial appraiser, which is Eamon, he looks at that. And sometimes they're different, sometimes they're not. I mean, they're just, and here's what's gonna happen out of this whole process. We're actually gonna get, hopefully, some good data. I mean, you need to understand that if we have rent rates, let's just say hypothetically, that was $6 a square foot. And everybody that comes in and says, man, this is what I'm getting for rent. It's $4.50 a foot. And the next guy comes in, it's $4.50 a foot. And the next guy comes in, $4.50 a foot. And then guess what? Now we have an actual adjustment that's a regional change that we can actually look at that model in Texas and say, here regionally, it's not $6, it's $4. But those are just elements within the whole package. I hope I explained that well.
You did. I just, again, from a protest standpoint or from a business owner trying to get his head around how things are that much different. Like for 20 years when I was gainfully employed, a house built in Rockport was a 22 to 25% increase over the same house in any subdivision in Corpus Christi.
That's correct.
Always was, always has been. Is the same true for business? Not from my perspective.
No, it's not.
No, business income is significantly lower. In fact, from a dollar perspective, a storage unit commands a better return on cost per square foot or rent rate per square foot than a strip center.
That is correct. Well, let me think.
Yeah, because storage places are $1.25 a foot and lease rates for, say, the Bells, that area there, 80 cents a foot.
Yeah.
That's dated information.
Yeah,
That's not the last 2 years.
I was gonna say that's not the.
They're
number
retired for
we have.
years, but the point is it was significantly lower.
Yeah, and the greater point to all of it is that I need to say this, the property value study is there for two purposes. One, to grade you, and two, to grade you. It really points out maybe some blind spots that you have that you think you're doing a good job at, and maybe you didn't. And so that was a revelation to me, and I'm a factual guy. I'm a numbers guy. I look at ratios and think that doesn't make sense. And then if somebody shows me something and said, have you ever considered this? It's something I've never looked at before, or never really, when you're looking at the 3 approaches to value, you have to consider highest and best use. And somebody says, this is how these are transacting. People are buying an income stream. That's all they're buying. And so they're looking at this from a strictly income approach. Then I have to go with that because that's pure logic at that point. So that's where we're at. That's the report. We've been up in appeals. My suspicion is we'll be higher this year. As far as the total number of appeals, we'll be higher this year than we were last year. I will say that we're having some good success with the online pins and being able to communicate with people, both through the telephone and them actually submitting evidence online through our online portal. So we're having some good success, and we're actually utilizing the system better so that we can disseminate that information back to the property owner. Like, here's our evidence. What's good for you to know, and not that you can have an opinion about this, but it's just informational, is that most of our early protests have been agents, right? And so they're doing the online portal, and we're getting that information exchange. I'm protesting this property. Okay, here's the evidence. Boom. So we're doing this. And they're getting that evidence and going, okay, I withdraw my protest. And they do it online. And so it's really good. It's a seamless kind of interaction. And they protested, you've given them the evidence, they've withdrawn the protest, boom, it's done for the year. So we're getting some success in this COVID thing. It's kind of
You can protest, how you got to where you are. Can you protest the approach?
You can protest the valuation. You can
Right.
protest an exemption denial. The burden of proof is always on the district to prove the valuation. So you can say, I don't like that approach. Like, if you're a property owner, you could say, well, the sales comparison approach says it's this.
Right.
And you can provide evidence for that. Like, a property owner could provide evidence for that. But if I say we did it on the income model, let's just say hypothetically we did it on the income approach, the burden of proof is for us to show the income for those type of properties. And then the ARB gets to decide what they, what's the best and highest approach to that. Because when you look at highest and best, which is a methodology term in appraisal, use highest and best approach.
So the review board could decide that the income approach was not appropriate and that the other was.
Right.
Theoretically.
A really good example would be, hey, Mike, you appraised us on the income approach, but we just bought this strip center for X. Here's our closing statement. Your income approach says it should be worth 1.9, but we paid 1.75. Boom. Guess who wins in that situation? So, I mean, it's all subject to, if it's an appeal, it's an appeal. They get to, the burden of proof for us in that methodology would be that these type of properties typically transact on an income stream basis. So.
And they can be adjusted to our specific market if it ends up over appraising things using some standardized data.
That's what you're asking.
What that's basically doing is telling us what our market specific cap rate should be. You can just make the cap rate higher, or you can explain how the expenses are higher here, or the market rent is lower. Those kind of things, though, we have to have something to prove it, or else you just go with whatever is average. And it's going to be a little bit of a painful process, I think, but
or you get actual data. Like, these are actually 5 strip centers that actually have data, and so the cap rate over here is adjusted to an actual cap rate for a local modifier, and we get that information. Like, that's what's going to happen as a result of this, I think, over a couple of years.
It's already starting to happen. Actually, people are already talking to us about that stuff.
So just know that, as in every year, when people see large increases, in no way do we ever deny anybody their rights. You will hear, or you might hear, that there was a recent AG opinion that said that, hey, if a person clicks an in-person hearing, then they're entitled to an in-person hearing. Guess what? That's factual, that's actual, that is correct. So if a person says, my name is such and such, and I protest, and I want to be here for my hearing, no problem. Take your protest, we're gonna put it right here. Now, when the social distancing standards are as such where the whole world feels like we can all meet together again, then we'll do that. We'll actually have that one. We're going to encourage telephone hearings. We're going to encourage video conference hearings where we can actually, we can actually see the person, and the ARB can see the person, and they can interact with the person.
That a person can, according to the AGP, they can say, I don't want to do telephone or virtual. I want to wait until I can do in person.
That's correct.
And
We have to.
that's fine if that's what the AGP. And then during that time period, if that goes on for a while, how do you handle?
Well, there's this other stipulation of having 95% of the actual roll submitted.
Jerry, how do you?
Well, there's the 95% of the roll. Remember, Jerry, that we have.
They have to certify
We have to
95%.
certify 95%. So the hope is that we don't get so many of these and the stack gets so big that it exceeds 5% of the total value. If it does, then we have to start seeing these in some capacity. We just do. I don't know if it's putting everybody in a corner of the ARB with mask and requiring mask and doing the whole, head like we did when we came in. Everybody got their temperature taken. It could be something like that. I don't know.
Are they public meetings?
They're always subject to, yeah. Like
I mean,
this is a public meeting. It's subject to the
Right.
meeting.
Anybody can attend.
But I could attend Travis's hearing on his value.
Of course. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good
I
question.
didn't know
I
I did
never
well.
asked that question.
Well, when you said that, I was like, they'll have them outside. And I thought, well, maybe they're not public. I don't know.
They'll put them, we're putting them on YouTube this year.
So people
That's
What if I don't want to be on YouTube?
That's part of what you agreed to. Yep, you are.
So that is the appeal season and the map review. The map review is ongoing right now,
Might remind me, when's the last date appeals can be filed?
June 17th.
June 17th, so you got about another 3 weeks.
That's correct.
Okay.
This season was weird for everybody. Normally you had big districts that normally get in on like early with their notice process and their mailings, and they got pushed back because of COVID, so we got pushed back as well. We had to wait an additional week or 10 days normal. Like we would have had it out on the 8th, I think, and we had it out on the 18th. We had the information to the printer, it just, we were at the back of the line, so it was what it was. At this
So
point,
as appeals, do you have a big number?
my last look, Ray, are we about 500, 600?
We're like a little over 550
550.
with
La-
450 active.
Yeah, we
Something
had,
like that.
last year total protest, and you have to think inquiries are different than protests, but total protest, actual I protest signed document kind of thing, we had about 1,400, 1,500. So if it gives you an idea, we're about a third of that right now, so.
Okay.
All right, and the last thing is the map review. Want to let you know that that's ongoing right now. We're collecting and gathering documents for the virtual online meeting with the comptroller's representative, who actually takes those documents and says that, hey, you're doing your board of directors meetings correctly, or you're looking at your ag properties correctly, or what are some other things that they look at? Like your annual report is on the website, or your utility bill is on the website, or there's a litany of things that they look at. And last time we passed, like we had a good score. I don't know how we're gonna go this time. I'll let you know when we get the results. So
Did you get my certificate today?
I did. That was one of the things. So if you haven't done your certificate, I don't know, I think everybody has.
I got Larry's and I have Jerry's.
I sent
I sent my,
Oh, well,
yeah, I sent a copy
Mike
for
may
you
have
if you'd
one.
I
like.
sent Mike and Dee.
Yep.
Yeah.
I forwarded it over.
Dee got after me.
Yeah, I forwarded it over.
I wanted credit.
Beth is one of the persons that's gathering all those documents together. So thank you for doing that. That was one of the documents that we did not have that we need. So anyways, that's all we have, or that's all I have.
Okay.
How often do that training require?
Somebody asked me that just recently and I don't know the answer to
I
that.
think that was myself that might have asked, because when it I think it first became a law that we had to take it in 2006, elected officials. I don't know when the other stuff came.
But
before.
I think it's through your term.
But I've only
Huh?
taken it that one time.
Yeah, that's what.
And I don't know where that certificate is. And
Remember, I did it when I started.
so I
mean,
took
I've
it,
done
I did
once
it
before.
again today, so I'm good to the end of my term.
Yeah. So that's all I have, guys.
Okay, next meeting, June 9th at 2:30.
June 9th at 2:30.
Okay.
Tuesday.
Good.
We will have it posted prior to or on or before the 5th of June.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Discussion.
Thank you, Frank. Thanks, Frank.
Thank you for your tolerance of letting me do it via Zoom. I appreciate it.
We're looking forward to pictures from space next time.
Okay, good.
All right. Even if you'll let us know when you're.
Yeah, I'm actually going to end the meeting in just a
Are we
second.
adjourned?
You are.
We are here.
I just have to keep the Zoom meeting open so I can show you something.
Show me something.
Yes, any technical problem. It'll be up there.
Okay. Oh. We're having trouble with the phones and stuff right now.
It is completely unusable. I can't even hear Barbara. I had to call some property owners on my cell phone. The problem that we're having is, you see this, it's like really inconsistent.
Yeah.
This number's supposed to be like up here. And our download speeds are terrible. Our upload speed on my computer is like 0.2.
Okay.
So PAX is barely working. The PAX is like, the internet's just completely insufficient to host a Zoom meeting and PAX and our VoIP phones at the same time. We don't have AT&T. We're using internet from the city. That's the problem. And it's that throttle that they have on it. But anyways, that needs to be fixed, or else during the hearings, when they call somebody, it's not gonna work.
Okay, we're gonna have to fix that.
Yeah.
It's another technical difficulty jump through.